I walked into the divorce courtroom alone, without a lawyer, without support, and without a single person by my side. My husband did not even stand up when he saw me at the door. He only gave me a faint smile, as if he already held my life in his hands. His mother sat behind him with the cold face of a woman who had already won. And on the judge's desk was a file they knew absolutely nothing about. My name is Amanda Mitchell. I am 37 years old. I worked as a flight attendant for one of the major American airlines, and most of my adult life was spent somewhere between the sky, hotel rooms, overnight flights, and smiles I had to keep on my face even when everything inside me was breaking. People often thought my job was beautiful. They saw the uniform, the rolling suitcase, the neat hairstyle, and the calm voice during turbulence. Nobody saw me coming home after a delayed flight at 3 in the morning with swollen feet, an empty refrigerator, and a husband who did not even ask whether I had eaten. At first, I blamed exhaustion. Then I blamed his personality. Then our debts. Then his mother, who constantly repeated that a good wife does not complain, but supports her husband, even when she can barely breathe herself. I believed that far too deeply. My husband, Ryan, worked in real estate. At least, that was what he told everyone around us. He knew how to speak with confidence, wore expensive shirts, always had an answer for every question, and looked at people as if he already knew their weakness. When we got married, I thought that was strength. Now I understand it was control. I was often away on flights, so I trusted him more than I should have. He paid the bills, talked to the banks, checked the mail, and opened the letters. I thought it was help. In reality, it was a trap he was building slowly, quietly, and very carefully. The first real warning sign appeared after a flight from Denver to Atlanta. I came home earlier than expected because one of my flights had been canceled because of a storm. The apartment was dark, but there was an open folder on the kitchen table. Inside were copies of documents with my signature. I did not remember signing them. Back then, I did not panic yet. I simply stood in the middle of the kitchen in my uniform, with my badge still hanging around my neck, trying to understand why my name was on a credit agreement I had never heard of before. The amount was so large that I read it 3 times. For a moment, I thought my eyes were just tired after the long flight. The next morning, Ryan said it was temporary. He said I had misunderstood everything. He said it was for our future. His voice was calm, and my shame was stronger than my fear. I believed him because I wanted to be a good wife, not a woman who suspected her own husband. That was when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I stayed silent. After that, everything changed, but not all at once. Things like that rarely explode in a single day. They seep into your life in tiny drops. First comes a strange phone call from the bank. Then a letter that disappears from the mailbox. Then a notice about a missed payment, even though you did not even know that payment existed. Ryan started getting angry whenever I asked questions. His mother came over almost every Sunday and spoke to me as if I were a guest in my own home. She called me unstable because of my overnight flights, exhausted because of my job, and too emotional because of stress. Slowly, they taught me to doubt myself. At work, I was still the same Amanda who could calm passengers during a sudden drop in rough air. I could smile at a child who was afraid to fly. I could help an elderly woman find her medicine in her bag. I could keep my voice steady even when the cabin shook so badly that people grabbed their armrests. But at home, I was afraid to open my own mail. When Ryan filed for divorce, he did it as if he were taking out the trash. No conversation, no explanation, no shame. In the documents, it said I was financially irresponsible, emotionally unstable, and incapable of dividing our property honestly. He wanted to keep the house, the car, and most of our savings. The debts were supposed to stay with me. I read those papers in a hotel room in Chicago after an overnight flight. Outside the window, the wet gray streets were waking up, and I sat on the edge of the bed in my white shirt, unable to move. For the first time in many years, I did not cry. It was too quiet inside me. In that silence, I realized I could no longer be convenient. For the next 3 weeks, I did not argue with him. I did not ask for explanations. I did not beg. I simply began collecting what he believed had been destroyed long ago or hidden well enough. Old emails. Bank notifications, screenshots, copies of documents, dates of my flights when I physically could not have been in the city, but somehow had supposedly signed important agreements. Every discovery hurt, but at the same time, it gave me my voice back. And then the day of court arrived. Ryan came with an expensive lawyer. His mother sat beside him, holding her purse on her lap so tightly it looked as if my fate was inside it. They were certain I would break. To them, I was still the quiet flight attendant who had swallowed insults for years and apologized even when she had done nothing wrong. I walked in alone. The judge opened the case file, looked over the first page, and suddenly stopped. His expression changed. The room became so quiet that I heard Ryan's breathing lose its rhythm. Because inside that folder were not just divorce documents. There was proof that my husband had spent years building a life on my name, my trust, and my silence. And when the judge lifted his eyes, for the first time, I did not see anger on Ryan's face. I saw fear. The fear on Ryan's face lasted only a few seconds. Then he lowered his eyes, straightened his tie, and tried to become the man everyone expected him to be. Calm, controlled, innocent. The kind of man who made other people question themselves before they questioned him. But I had seen that tiny crack. For years, I had watched him hide behind confidence. I had watched him turn every accusation back on me with a patient voice and a disappointed stare. In our marriage, he never had to shout to make me feel small. He only had to act as if my confusion proved his point. That morning, the courtroom felt colder than it should have. I sat at my table with my hands folded in my lap, feeling the weight of every sleepless night that had brought me there. My uniform was gone, replaced by a simple navy dress and black heels I had worn to funerals, interviews, and once to a company disciplinary meeting after a passenger lied about me. I had survived all of that. But sitting 10 feet from Ryan felt harder than any turbulence. His lawyer began by painting a picture of me that sounded almost believable. A tired flight attendant. A woman constantly away from home. Someone overwhelmed by money, stress, and emotional instability. He described me like a suitcase left too long in lost baggage, damaged by travel and unable to belong anywhere. I listened without moving. Every sentence was designed to make me look careless. Every phrase carried the same message Ryan had fed me for years. Amanda forgets things. Amanda misunderstands. Amanda reacts emotionally. Amanda cannot be trusted with facts when she is tired. His mother sat behind him like a witness to my failure. She had always been good at that. When Ryan and I first married, she welcomed me with soft smiles and sharp little comments. She told me I was pretty in a tired way. She said flight attendants made charming wives as long as they remembered marriage came first. At family dinners, she praised Ryan for working hard and asked me whether I planned to settle down from flying soon. Back then, I laughed because I wanted peace. Later, I learned that peace bought with silence is not peace. It is just a slower kind of damage. The judge asked simple questions and Ryan's lawyer gave polished answers. I could feel the room leaning toward the version of me they had prepared. A woman who was gone too often. A woman who missed bills. A woman whose name appeared on documents because she had signed them and later forgot. Then the judge turned one page. I saw it happen before anyone else understood. His eyes narrowed slightly. His fingers paused on the paper. The courtroom did not change, but the energy inside it did. Something quiet shifted, like the cabin pressure dropping before anyone hears the warning chime. That page held the first timeline I had built by myself. It showed a loan application filed in my name on a Tuesday afternoon in April. Under it, I had attached my airline schedule, hotel receipt, crew assignment, and a digital check-in from Seattle. At the exact time my signature appeared on that loan, I had been 30,000 feet above Oregon, serving ginger ale to a nervous teenager and pretending not to notice my own exhaustion. There was no drama in that paper. That was what made it powerful. It did not scream. It did not accuse. It simply stood there, calm and undeniable. Ryan's lawyer asked for time to review it. His voice changed just enough for me to notice. Ryan shifted in his chair. His mother's purse moved slightly on her knees, her fingers tightening around the handle. For the first time, they were not controlling the room. They were reacting to it. The judge continued through the documents. Another credit line. Another date. Another signature that was supposedly mine. Each one was matched with flight records, hotel keys, gate assignments, and messages from cruise scheduling. Places I had been. Times I had worked. Proof that my body had been elsewhere while my name was being used at home. I did not look at Ryan. That was the only way I could stay steady. If I looked at him too long, I was afraid I would remember the woman I had been. The woman who cooked dinner after red-eye flights. The woman who apologized for asking about late notices. The woman who let her husband call control responsibility because she was too tired to fight the difference. The hearing did not end that day. It could not. The judge ordered a review of the financial records and requested additional documentation from the bank. Ryan's lawyer stood quickly, speaking in careful phrases about misunderstandings and incomplete information. He made it sound like a messy household mistake, something unfortunate but innocent. I knew better, because hidden inside my folder was one more piece of paper I had not shown yet. It was not from a bank. It was not from a credit card company. It was a hotel receipt from Dallas, charged to an account Ryan swore he never used. On a weekend, he had told me he was visiting his mother after her blood pressure scare. At first, I thought it only proved another lie. Then I noticed the second name on the reservation. A woman's name. Not mine. I had found it 3 nights before court, buried in a forwarded email chain Ryan must have forgotten to delete. The message was short, ordinary, and almost boring. A confirmation number. A room type. A late checkout request. Nothing romantic. Nothing obvious. But the date hit me like a hand around my throat. That weekend, I had been stranded in Minneapolis because of a winter storm. Ryan had told me he was worried sick about his mother. He sent me a photo of her living room, a half-empty mug of tea, and a blanket over the couch. I remembered feeling guilty for being away while he handled a family emergency. Now I understood the photo had been a prop. That realization did something strange to me. The money hurt. The forged signatures terrified me. The debt made my stomach turn cold. But the hotel receipt opened another door, one I had been afraid to touch. It suggested that Ryan was not just stealing from my future. He had been living another life while I paid for this one. After the hearing, I walked out of the courtroom before Ryan could reach me. My legs felt steady, but my chest felt hollow. The courthouse hallway was bright, crowded, and loud in the way public buildings always are when private lives are being torn open behind closed doors. I made it to the restroom before my hands started shaking. There, under fluorescent lights, I stared at my reflection and barely recognized myself. My face looked calm. My lipstick was still in place. My hair was smooth. I looked like the kind of woman who had everything under control. But inside, I was standing in the wreckage of a marriage I had never truly understood. That was when my phone buzzed. A new email had arrived from the bank investigator I had contacted 2 weeks earlier. I opened it with numb fingers, expecting another form, another delay, another polite sentence about processing time. Instead, there was one attachment. One scanned document. And when I opened it, the room seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Because at the bottom of that document was my signature again. But this time, beside it, in clear black ink, was Ryan's mother's name as a witness. Ryan's mother's name changed everything. Until that moment, I had believed she was cruel, controlling, and loyal to her son no matter what he did. I thought she protected him because he was her only child. I thought she blamed me because blaming me was easier than seeing who he really was. But her signature on that document meant something else. It meant she had not been standing outside the lie. She had been inside it. I stayed in the courthouse restroom with my phone in my hand, staring at her name until the letters blurred. The document was for a personal line of credit opened 2 years earlier. The amount was smaller than the others, but that made it worse somehow. It showed this had not started with one desperate decision. It had started small, tested carefully, then grown because no one stopped it. Because I never stopped it. That thought almost broke me, but I forced myself to breathe. I forwarded the document to myself, saved a copy, then uploaded it to the folder I had created under a name Ryan would never guess. I had learned not to keep evidence in one place. Not after emails disappeared. Not after bank notices vanished. Not after Ryan once took my laptop for updates and returned it with entire folders missing. When I stepped back into the hallway, Ryan was waiting near the elevators. His lawyer stood beside him, pretending not to watch me. His mother was there too, her chin lifted, her eyes sharp and flat. For years, that look had made me shrink. It had made me explain myself, soften my voice, and wonder whether I really was the problem. This time, I looked straight past her. I walked out of the courthouse without saying a word. The air outside felt cold enough to wake me up. I sat in my car, locked the doors, and opened the document again. Ryan's mother had signed as a witness on the same day I was working a flight from Boston to Phoenix. The timestamp placed the signing in a bank branch less than 15 minutes from our house. There was no possible explanation. Not a mistake. Not confusion. Not a forgotten conversation after a long flight. Someone had signed my name. Someone had watched it happen. And Ryan's mother had helped make it look real. That evening, I did not go home. I checked into a cheap airport hotel near Newark, the kind of place flight crews use when delays ruin everything. The carpet smelled like old coffee, the heater rattled, and the walls were thin enough to hear a stranger coughing next door. Still, it felt safer than my own bedroom. I laid every document across the bed. Loans, credit cards, bank notices, a second mortgage inquiry, a car insurance policy with changes I never approved, hotel receipts, old emails, screenshots from Ryan's phone that I had taken months earlier, back when I still felt guilty for looking. The pattern was no longer hidden. Ryan used my absences as cover. When I was flying, he signed. When I was sleeping after a red eye, he moved money. When I was trying to recover between trips, his mother came over and pushed me into shame. They did not need me to be stupid. They only needed me to be exhausted, trusting, and afraid of conflict. That was the part one hated most. They had studied my goodness like it was a weakness. Around midnight, I opened the Dallas hotel receipt again. The second name on the reservation was Chloe Bennett. I had seen it before, but my mind had refused to hold on to it. Now I searched through old emails and bank alerts until the name appeared again. Not once. 4 times. A restaurant in Miami. A resort deposit in Scottsdale. A boutique in Nashville. A rideshare receipt from Los Angeles, charged the night before Ryan told me we could not afford to fix the leak under our kitchen sink. Chloe was not a mistake. She was a second life with receipts. My stomach went cold, but I kept going. I searched social media, then business records, then old real estate listings Ryan had handled. Chloe Bennett was a staging consultant. She helped real estate agents prepare expensive homes for buyers. Her profile was polished and bright, full of white kitchens, champagne-colored curtains, and captions about fresh starts. Fresh starts. The words made me feel sick. Ryan had probably met her through work. While I crossed time zones and lived out of a suitcase, he built a private world with someone who saw him in daylight. She got dinners, hotel rooms, weekend trips, and whatever version of him he performed when he wanted to be admired. I got overdue notices and lectures about loyalty. By 2 in the morning, I found the detail that made my hands stop moving. Chloe's business mailing address matched one of the accounts opened under my name. Not Ryan's address. Not her home. My name was attached to her company expenses. For a few seconds, I could not understand what I was seeing. Then the pieces connected too quickly. The credit line. The hotel charges. The boutique purchases. The travel. Ryan had not only hidden an affair. He had used my identity to help fund the woman he was cheating with. That was the moment I whispered to myself that this was insane. Not dramatic. Not messy. Insane. I got up, locked the hotel room door again, and pushed a chair beneath the handle. My fear changed shape that night. It was no longer the soft fear of being abandoned. It became the sharper fear of realizing people close to you can destroy you while smiling across the dinner table. By sunrise, I had made 3 decisions. I would not return to the house alone. I would not speak to Ryan without a record. and I would not let shame keep me quiet for one more day. At 6:30, I called the bank investigator and left a detailed message. Then I contacted my airline's employee assistance office and asked for legal resources. Saying those words out loud felt humiliating, but also freeing. For the first time, I was not protecting Ryan's image. I was protecting my life. Later that morning, an email arrived from an attorney who volunteered with a financial abuse support program. She asked for timelines, documents, and anything showing I had been out of state during the signings. I sent everything before I could talk myself out of it. Then I opened one final folder. It was a set of photos from a holiday dinner 2 years earlier. Ryan's mother sat beside me at the table, smiling sweetly for the camera. Her hand rested on my shoulder like she loved me. I remembered that night clearly because she had praised me in front of everyone, then pulled me aside later and told me a wife who traveled too much should not be surprised when a husband felt lonely. At the time, I took it as an insult. Now I heard it as a warning. She had known about Chloe then. Maybe she had known from the beginning. My phone buzzed just after 9. It was a message from Ryan, the first one since court. He did not apologize. He did not explain. He only wrote that I was confused, that I was embarrassing both of us, and that I needed to stop before I ruined my own future. I read it twice. Then I took a screenshot. Because he still believed fear would make me obedient. But he did not understand what had changed in that courtroom. I was no longer trying to save my marriage. I was trying to prove what they had done to me. And the next document I opened showed that Ryan had not stopped at my credit. He had put my name on something far more dangerous. The next document was not a loan. It was not a credit card. It was not another hotel receipt hidden behind clean numbers and boring language. It was a business filing with my name listed as a co-owner. I stared at the screen, waiting for my brain to reject it. The company name meant nothing to me at first. Mitchell Harbor Properties, LLC. It sounded polished, safe, and official, like something printed on a sign outside a glass office building. But I had never created that company. I had never signed those papers. And I had never agreed to tie my name to Ryan's deals. The filing date landed during a week I remembered clearly. I had been on a 4-day international route, exhausted from back-to-back delays and a sick passenger who needed oxygen somewhere over the Atlantic. While I was walking through customs with dry eyes and shaking legs, someone had made me part of a business I did not know existed. That was when the fear became practical. Not emotional. Practical. If my name was on that company, then my name could be on contracts. My name could be attached to debt, taxes, lawsuits, or properties I had never seen. Ryan had not just damaged my credit. He had dragged me into a financial machine and left me blindfolded inside it. I printed the filing in the hotel lobby. My hands were steady because panic was no longer useful. The attorney called me before noon. Her voice was calm, but the silence between her questions told me enough. She asked whether I had ever signed formation documents, whether I had met with a notary, whether Ryan had access to my passport, social security card, or employee records. Every answer made the picture uglier. Yes, Ryan had access to my documents. Yes, his mother knew where we kept everything. Yes, I had spent years leaving home for days at a time. No, I had never checked whether my name was being used. That last answer burned. The attorney did not shame me. That almost made it harder. She explained that people like Ryan often chose partners with unpredictable schedules, strong guilt, and a habit of handling pressure quietly. I wanted to argue that I was not weak. I had handled emergencies at 30,000 feet. I had watched passengers panic and kept my voice level. But strength in one place does not protect you everywhere. At home, I had been trained to doubt myself. By late afternoon, I finally went back to the house, but not alone. A friend from my crew, Marisol, came with me. She did not ask for details. She simply drove behind me, parked in the driveway, and stood near the door while I packed. That small act nearly made me cry. Inside, the house looked exactly the same. The gray couch. The framed beach photo from our honeymoon. The kitchen table where I had first found documents with my signature. Everything looked normal, and that felt cruel. A home can look peaceful while quietly holding evidence of your destruction. I packed my passport, birth certificate, tax records, flight logs, uniforms, medication, and 2 photo albums. Then I checked the filing cabinet. The folder with my original documents was gone. I searched the desk, the closet, the drawer where Ryan kept warranties and old keys. Nothing. My social security card, old tax forms, and several bank letters had disappeared. The emptiness of that folder scared me more than anything Ryan had said, because missing documents means someone still plans to use them. I took photos of the empty cabinet. Then I photographed every drawer, every file label, every place where documents should have been. Marisol stood quietly in the hallway, her face tight with the kind of anger good friends carry when they cannot fix what happened. Before I left, I saw Ryan's mother's handwriting on a sticky note near the landline. A realtor's name, a phone number, a property address in Jersey City. The address matched the LLC filing. For a moment, the house seemed to shrink around me. I typed the address into my phone and saw a small apartment building listed under Mitchell Harbor Properties. I had never been there. I had never collected rent. I had never signed a lease. But my name was connected to the company that owned it. This was no longer only about divorce. This was fraud. That word felt heavy, but it also cleared the fog. Fraud had a shape. Fraud had records. Fraud could be investigated. That night, in Marisol's guest room, I spread the new evidence across the floor and built a second timeline. The LLC was formed 6 months before Ryan filed for divorce. The property was purchased 2 months later. The down payment came from an account linked to one of the credit lines opened in my name. Then came the detail that made everything click. The apartment building had 3 rental units. One tenant name was Chloe Bennett. I leaned back against the bed and felt the room go silent around me. Ryan had not only funded the affair through my credit. He had placed Chloe inside a property connected to my name. If payments failed, if taxes went unpaid, if tenants sued, the trail could lead back to me. He had built a life where I carried the risk and someone else enjoyed the reward. That was the "this is just insane" moment I will never forget. It was not loud. I did not scream. I just sat there on the carpet, surrounded by papers, and understood that my marriage had been used like a shell company. My trust had become paperwork. My silence had become permission. My exhaustion had become his business plan. The next morning, my attorney filed an emergency motion. She requested preservation of financial records, bank documents, business filings, property records, and electronic communications. She also requested that Ryan be blocked from opening or changing accounts connected to my name. For the first time, someone put legal walls around the chaos he had created. Ryan reacted within hours. He sent 6 messages. Then he called 12 times. Then his mother left a voicemail saying I was destroying a family over confusion and bitterness. Her voice sounded wounded, but I could hear the anger underneath. She was not afraid of losing me. She was afraid of what I had found. I saved everything. No replies. No explanations. No emotional traps. The next hearing was scheduled faster than I expected. This time, Ryan did not look smug when I entered the courtroom. His lawyer looked tired. His mother avoided my eyes. I sat beside my attorney, and for the first time in months, I felt the floor beneath me. The judge reviewed the emergency motion in silence. Page after page, date after date, account after account. When he reached the property records, Ryan's lawyer finally stood and tried to frame it as a marital investment I had forgotten approving. The words sounded polished, but weaker than before. There were too many dates. Too many flight records. Too many signatures appearing while I was miles above the ground. Then my attorney presented the tenant record. Chloe Bennett's name entered the courtroom like a match dropped onto dry paper. Ryan's face changed again. This time, his mother's face changed with it. The judge looked from the document to Ryan, then back to the file. He ordered a temporary freeze on disputed assets and referred parts of the matter for further review. His voice stayed measured, but the message was clear. They were not controlling the story anymore. When we stepped into the hallway, Ryan stood across from me like a man losing air. I expected anger. I expected denial. I expected one more attempt to make me feel crazy. Instead, his eyes moved past me, toward his mother. And in that single glance, I understood something worse. Ryan had not acted alone, but he might not have been the one who started it. Ryan's glance toward his mother lasted less than a second, but it told me more than any confession could have. For years, I had believed she was protecting him because he was her son. Now I wondered whether Ryan had been protecting her too. The thought felt impossible at first. Then I remembered how often she came over when I was flying, how often she handled our mail, how easily she found reasons to sit at our kitchen table with papers spread in front of her. She had not just been visiting. She had been managing. After the hearing, my attorney asked me to think carefully about every time Ryan's mother had access to our home. I made a list that night from Marisol's guest room. Holidays. Sundays. Supposed health scares. Times she watered plants while I was on long routes. Times she helped Ryan organize tax papers. Times she stayed in our house when she claimed her apartment had plumbing problems. The list became too long. Each memory had once seemed harmless. Together, they looked like a map. The next morning, the bank investigator called. He had reviewed one of the older documents and found the notary stamp suspicious. The license number belonged to a woman who had retired 3 years before that document was signed. That meant someone had either used an old stamp, copied it, or submitted a forged page. I sat on the edge of Marisol's couch and felt my whole body go cold. This was bigger than Ryan lying to me. This was organized. My attorney moved fast. She requested records from the Notary Commission, the bank branch, and the title company connected to the Jersey City property. She also told me to prepare for something painful. People who build lies this deep do not usually stop when they are exposed. They attack character, memory, and motive because facts are no longer on their side. She was right. By evening, Ryan's mother began calling relatives. I heard pieces of it through messages from cousins I had not spoken to in years. Amanda was unstable. Amanda was bitter. Amanda wanted revenge because Ryan had moved on. Amanda had always been careless with money. The same story spread quickly, dressed up as concern. A few months earlier, it would have crushed me. Now it only confirmed the pattern. They needed me to look unreliable before the documents made them look guilty. I wanted to defend myself to everyone. My fingers hovered over messages I knew would only pull me into more humiliation. Then I remembered every flight briefing I had ever given. In an emergency, you do not argue with panic. You secure what matters first. So I stayed quiet and kept building evidence. The title company records arrived 2 days later. My name appeared again, tied to the purchase of the Jersey City building. But the contact email listed under my file was not mine. It was Ryan's mother's old email address, the one she used for church donations, grocery coupons, and family newsletters. There it was. Simple. Boring. Devastating. For months, official notices about a property in my name had gone to her inbox. She had received updates, approvals, closing details, and payment reminders. She knew exactly what was happening. She had not stumbled into Ryan's scheme. She had helped keep me blind. That night, I finally cried. Not because I missed Ryan. Not because I wanted the marriage back. I cried because I realized how many people had used my silence as a room they could move around in. They had taken my trust, my work, my clean name, and my need to keep peace. Then they acted shocked when I reached for the light. The next court date came quickly. This time, I did not feel alone walking in. My attorney sat beside me. Marisol waited outside the courtroom. Behind me, I could feel strangers breathing, papers shifting, lives falling apart in quiet rows. Divorce court was full of endings, but mine had become something else. It had become an unveiling. The judge reviewed the new records without expression. The false notary stamp. The wrong contact email. The property documents. The credit lines. My flight schedules. The pattern was now too clear to be dismissed as confusion. Ryan's lawyer tried to separate him from his mother. He suggested Ryan may not have known which email address was used. He suggested paperwork had been handled by third parties. He suggested the marriage had been stressful, and I may have misunderstood shared financial decisions. But there was nothing shared about a signature written while I was in the air. There was nothing shared about notices sent to another woman's inbox. Then my attorney presented the strongest page. A closing document showed Ryan's mother had transferred money into the property account 3 days before the purchase. The amount matched part of the down payment. In the memo line, she had written one word: family. I stared at that word until my chest tightened. Family had been the excuse for everything. Family meant I should forgive insults. Family meant I should ignore strange bills. Family meant I should support Ryan's dreams, even when they emptied me out. Now the same word sat on a bank record beside money that helped trap me. The judge ordered further financial investigation and extended the freeze on disputed assets. He also warned Ryan and his mother through their attorneys that any destruction of records would carry serious consequences. No one raised their voice. No one had to. The room understood. When we left, Ryan's mother did not look proud anymore. Her face looked smaller, almost gray. For a second, I thought she might finally show regret. But then her eyes met mine, and I saw something colder than shame. Resentment. She did not hate what they had done. She hated that I had stopped accepting it. That evening, my attorney called with one more update. The investigator had found another account linked to Mitchell Harbor Properties. It had received rental payments for months. I asked whose name was authorized to withdraw. The answer came quietly: Ryan's mother. And one more person: Chloe Bennett. Chloe Bennett's name on that account changed the shape of the betrayal. Until then, I had seen her as the other woman. Painful, yes. Humiliating, yes. But still separate from the machinery Ryan and his mother had built around me. Now her name sat beside theirs, authorized to touch money tied to a company I never created. That meant she was not just living inside the lie. She was benefiting from it. For the first time, I wondered how much she knew. Maybe Ryan had told her I was a bitter ex who refused to let go. Maybe he had painted me as unstable before she ever learned my name. That was what he did best. He did not only lie. He prepared people to reject the truth before it arrived. Still, one fact remained. Chloe had access to money connected to my stolen identity. My attorney told me not to contact her directly. That was hard, because part of me wanted to hear her voice crack. I wanted one sentence that sounded like guilt. But wanting an emotional answer was exactly the kind of trap that had kept me stuck for years. So I listened. We sent everything through legal channels. A subpoena went out for account records, rent deposits, withdrawals, emails, and payment authorizations. The process felt slow, but every new page pulled the truth closer. I learned that the rental income from the Jersey City building had been moved in small pieces. Some payments went to the mortgage. Others went to repairs. But several withdrawals matched weekends when Ryan had told me he was out of town for work. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, luxury shopping, all traced back to money I was legally tied to. My anger felt different now. It was no longer wild or messy. It was clean, focused, almost quiet. I stopped asking why they had done it because the answer was simple and ugly. They did it because it worked. They did it because I was gone, tired, trusting, and trained to feel guilty for needing answers. That realization hurt, but it also freed me. At the next hearing, Chloe appeared through her attorney. She did not sit near Ryan. She did not look at his mother. Her hair was perfectly styled, her face pale, her hands folded tightly on the table. I watched her from across the room and felt something I did not expect. Not pity, not forgiveness, just a strange calm. She was no longer a shadow in my marriage. She was a person under fluorescent courtroom lights, attached to documents, accounts, and choices. Whatever story Ryan had told her, the paper trail had arrived now. She could not pretend the money had no source. The judge reviewed the account access records. Chloe's attorney argued she believed the company was Ryan's family business. Ryan's lawyer argued Ryan had relied on his mother for paperwork. His mother's attorney argued she was only helping her son through a difficult marriage. Everyone had an explanation. None of them explained why my signature kept appearing while I was flying. That became the center of everything. My flight records were simple, ordinary, and impossible to bend. Gate times, crew manifests, hotel receipts, employee scans, security entries. Each one placed me somewhere else while my name was used. They tried to make me seem emotional, but the documents were not emotional. They were exact. By the end of that hearing, the judge ordered a forensic review of the disputed signatures and referred the identity issues to the proper investigators. He also kept the asset freeze in place and blocked all three of them from moving rental funds connected to the LLC. Ryan looked stunned. His mother looked furious. Chloe looked afraid. I walked out without looking back. Outside the courthouse, Marisol handed me a coffee and stood beside me in silence. That was the kind of friendship I had forgotten existed. No pressure. No judgment. Just someone staying near while my life changed shape. For years, I thought love meant explaining pain until someone finally cared. Marisol reminded me that real care often does not need a performance. That night, I returned to the airport hotel and packed my small suitcase again. I had a flight assignment the next morning, my first one since the hearings began. Part of me wanted to call in sick. Another part needed to remember who I was before Ryan turned my life into evidence. At the gate, I felt exposed. Every announcement sounded too loud. Every passenger seemed to move too quickly. I smiled, checked boarding passes, helped a mother fold a stroller, and felt the old rhythm slowly return to my body. Not because I was fine. I was not. But because I was still capable. That mattered. During the flight, we hit turbulence over Ohio. The cabin shook hard enough that a few passengers gasped. My hands moved automatically. My voice stayed even. I told them what they needed to know, calmly and clearly. No panic. No drama. Just presence. Then, for the first time in weeks, I understood something important. Ryan had mistaken my softness for weakness. He had mistaken my patience for permission. He had mistaken my silence for surrender. But the same woman who kept strangers calm in a shaking aircraft could also sit in a courtroom and let the truth shake him. When we landed in Atlanta, I checked my phone and saw a message from my attorney. The forensic examiner had delivered the first preliminary finding. Several signatures on the disputed documents were highly inconsistent with mine. One appeared to match writing samples from another person already connected to the case. My chest tightened. I knew before I opened the attachment. The sample was from Ryan's mother. For a long moment, I stood near the jet bridge while passengers walked past me with bags, coats, and ordinary complaints about tight connections. The world kept moving around me, careless and normal. But inside my life, something huge had shifted. It was no longer just suspicion. It was evidence. And the woman who had spent years calling me unstable was now tied to the handwriting that nearly destroyed me. The handwriting result did not make me feel victorious. That surprised me. For weeks, I had imagined proof would feel like air after drowning. I thought one clean document would unlock something inside me, and I would finally stop feeling afraid. But when I saw Ryan's mother connected to those signatures, I felt quiet instead. Not empty, just quiet. Because proof does not erase what happened. It only stops people from calling you crazy for noticing. My attorney filed the examiner's report before the next hearing. She also submitted the missing document list from our house, the false notary concerns, and the email records tied to Ryan's mother. By then, the case no longer looked like a simple divorce. It looked like a financial abuse case wrapped in marriage papers. Ryan's side changed strategy again. First, they had called me confused, then careless, then bitter. Now they called me unforgiving. That one almost made me laugh, because forgiveness had never been the issue. I had forgiven late nights, cold dinners, sharp comments, and lonely anniversaries. I had forgiven things nobody ever apologized for. What they really wanted was not forgiveness. They wanted silence with a softer name. At the hearing, Ryan's mother finally looked smaller. Not weak. Not sorry. Just cornered. Her attorney argued that she had helped with paperwork because Ryan was overwhelmed. Ryan's attorney argued that signatures could be misunderstood. Chloe's attorney repeated that she believed everything was legitimate. The judge listened without much expression. Then my attorney laid out the timeline again. My flight from Boston to Phoenix. The loan sign near home. My international route over the Atlantic. The LLC formed in my name. My hotel stay in Seattle. The account opened with Ryan's mother's email. My layover in Minneapolis. The weekend Ryan spent in Dallas with Chloe. Piece by piece, the story became too straight to twist. Ryan stared at the table. His mother kept her jaw tight. Chloe looked like she wished she had never heard my name. I did not enjoy watching them suffer. I only felt the strange relief of seeing consequences enter a room where excuses had lived for years. The judge extended the asset freeze again. He ordered Ryan to provide full access to marital financial records, business accounts, property files, and communications involving the LLC. He also kept the disputed debts separate from my responsibility until the investigation finished. Those words mattered more than anyone understood. For months, I had woken up feeling already buried. Every bill looked like a threat. Every unknown number felt like another collector. Now, for the first time, the law recognized that my name on paper did not mean my consent. After court, Ryan waited near the hallway again. This time, I did not walk faster. I did not lower my eyes. He looked tired, older, and strangely ordinary. Without confidence, without performance, without his mother's voice behind him, he was not the giant I had feared. He was just a man who had relied on my fear longer than he should have. He sent one message later that evening. Not an apology. A warning. He wrote that if I kept pushing, everything would come out, including things I did not want people to know. For 1 second, my stomach tightened like it used to. Then I read the message again and saw it clearly. It was not power. It was panic wearing a mask. I forwarded it to my attorney. No response. No argument. No open door. The final turning point came 3 days later from a place I never expected. Chloe's attorney contacted mine with documents. Chloe was trying to protect herself now, and that meant Ryan's secrets were suddenly useful to someone else. The file showed messages Ryan had sent her over almost 2 years. He had told Chloe the divorce was already planned. He had said I was unstable, reckless with money, and barely present in the marriage. He had claimed the company belonged to his family and that I was only listed for tax convenience because I was his wife. Then came the sentence that made my hands go cold. He had written that his mother knew how to handle my signature because she had done it before. I read that line several times. There was no grief left in me when I finished. Only clarity. That one message pulled Ryan and his mother into the same circle. It showed knowledge. It showed intent. It showed that my confusion had never been accidental. They had depended on it. They had planned around it. The next settlement conference felt different from the moment we arrived. Ryan's lawyer was no longer performing confidence. His mother did not speak. Chloe's side wanted distance from the property, the accounts, and every payment tied to my name. The pressure that had been aimed at me for years was finally turning back toward them. I did not ask for revenge. I asked for my name back. My attorney pushed for removal from the LLC, separation from fraudulent debts, reimbursement of funds traced to my accounts, full transfer of disputed records, and protection from future claims connected to the property. She also demanded that Ryan accept responsibility for the marital debts he had created without my knowledge. It was not neat. Nothing about damage like that is neat. But it was movement. By the end of the conference, Ryan agreed to terms he once would have laughed at. The house would be sold. The car would be refinanced out of my name. The disputed debts would remain under investigation, not dumped onto me. The LLC would be frozen until my name could be removed through proper legal channels. Most importantly, he could no longer use divorce to bury the fraud. That night, I slept 6 hours without waking. It was the first real sleep I had in months. In the morning, I sat by Marisol's kitchen window with coffee cooling between my hands. Sunlight touched the floor in thin gold lines. Nothing dramatic happened. No music rose. No perfect peace filled the room. But my body felt like it had finally stopped bracing for impact. I thought about the woman I had been at the beginning. The one afraid to open mail. The one who believed being easy to love meant being easy to use. The one who apologized so often she forgot what innocence felt like. I did not hate her. She had survived with the tools she had. But I would not become her again. Later that afternoon, my attorney sent one final update before the next phase began. Investigators had located the missing original records from my house. They were not in Ryan's office. They were not in storage. They had been placed in a locked file box at his mother's apartment. Inside were my tax forms, copies of my ID, old bank letters, and blank pages with my signature at the bottom. Blank pages. Already signed. Waiting to be used. I stared at the screen for a long time. Because even after everything I had uncovered, that discovery showed me how close I had come to losing more than money. They had not been finished with me. And now, for the first time, neither was I. The blank signed pages were the final piece of the nightmare. I had no memory of signing them. That scared me more than any loan, any hotel receipt, or any account. A signature on a blank page is not just paperwork. It is a loaded weapon in the wrong hands. My attorney moved quickly after that. She filed the discovery with the court, added it to the fraud review, and requested stronger protections around every account tied to my name. The judge did not need much convincing anymore. The pattern was too clear, too consistent, and too carefully hidden. Ryan no longer looked like a wronged husband. His mother no longer looked like a concerned parent. They looked like people who had counted on my silence and ran out of places to hide. The final settlement hearing happened on a rainy Thursday morning. I remember the sound of water against the courthouse windows. I remember Ryan's mother sitting stiffly with both hands in her lap. For once, she did not look at me like I owed her something. Ryan looked thinner than before. Chloe was not there in person. Her attorney handled her part quietly. She had already agreed to cooperate with the financial review and give up any claim connected to the rental account. I never learned whether she felt guilt or only fear. By then, I did not need to know. That was its own kind of freedom. The judge approved the major terms. The house would be sold, and my share protected from debts under investigation. The car would be removed from my name. The disputed loans would not be treated as my responsibility without proof of consent. My name would be removed from Mitchell Harbor Properties through supervised legal steps. Ryan would be responsible for records he had controlled. His mother would be required to provide all documents, emails, and financial information connected to my name. The blank signed pages, false notary concerns, and forged signatures would remain with investigators beyond the divorce case. The marriage ended in a room full of paper. No shouting. No grand confession. No apology that could repair anything. Just the quiet sound of consequences finally becoming official. When it was over, I stood outside the courtroom and waited for something dramatic to hit me. Relief. Rage. Grief. Victory. But what came instead was a tired, steady breath from somewhere deep in my chest. For the first time in years, I felt like my life belonged to me again. Ryan passed me in the hallway without speaking. His eyes flicked toward mine for half a second, then away. His mother followed behind him, holding her purse with both hands. That same purse had once looked like it carried my future. Now it only looked heavy. I watched them walk toward the elevators and felt no urge to chase an explanation. Some people will never give you the truth because they would have to meet themselves first. I had spent years begging for honesty from people who survived by avoiding it. I was done begging. The months after the settlement were not easy. People like to imagine that once you win in court, pain disappears. It does not. It changes shape. There were credit reports to dispute, banks to contact, passwords to reset, records to correct, and mornings when one envelope in the mailbox could still make my hands shake. Healing was not a clean line. Some days, I felt strong before breakfast and broken by noon. Other days, I laughed with my crew in an airport lounge and then cried alone in a hotel bathroom because a couple at the next gate looked happy in a way I used to believe I had. But slowly, life made room for me again. I moved into a small apartment near the airport. It was not fancy, but every bill had my name on it because I chose it. Every drawer held only what I placed there. No hidden folders. No missing mail. No voice in the kitchen telling me I had misunderstood my own life. The first night there, I slept on a mattress on the floor. Rain tapped against the window and planes passed low overhead. Instead of feeling lonely, I felt safe. Not perfectly healed. Not magically new. Just safe enough to breathe without asking anyone's permission. That was enough. I kept flying. At first, returning to the sky felt strange. I had spent so long being used because of my schedule that every trip reminded me of what had happened at home. Then one morning, during a quiet boarding in Atlanta, a little girl looked up at me and said she wanted to be brave on the plane. I smiled at her and felt something inside me soften. Bravery is not always loud. Sometimes it is checking your credit report after years of fear. Sometimes it is sending one document before shame talks you out of it. Sometimes it is walking into court alone, even when the people who hurt you are waiting to watch you fall. I used to think my strength came from staying calm for everyone else. Now I know it also comes from standing still when the truth is finally on your side. A year later, my credit was still being repaired, but my name was clear where it mattered most. The house was gone. The LLC no longer touched me. The investigators handled what remained. Ryan's life became something I heard about only through legal updates, and then, eventually, not at all. That silence felt like sunlight. I never got the perfect apology. Not from Ryan. Not from his mother. Not from Chloe. But I got something better than words from people who had spent years twisting them. I got proof. I got distance. I got my own door, my own bank account, my own morning coffee, and the ability to open my mailbox without feeling hunted. Sometimes, passengers still ask whether I am ever afraid during turbulence. I tell them the truth in the simplest way I can. Fear is normal. The important thing is not letting it fly the plane. And maybe that is what my marriage taught me in the hardest way. Love should not require you to disappear. Family should not be a word people use to trap you. Trust should not mean handing someone the keys to your entire life and never checking where they drive. I had believed silence made me loyal. It only made me easier to harm. Now I ask questions. I read documents. I keep copies. I protect my peace without apologizing for it. And when something feels wrong, I do not bury that feeling just because someone else sounds confident. Confidence can lie. Paper can lie. People you love can lie. But the truth has a way of waiting quietly until you are ready to stand beside it. That rainy day in court, I did not destroy my marriage. I finally stopped letting it destroy me. And when I walked out of that courthouse alone, I was not the quiet wife Ryan expected to break. I was Amanda Mitchell, flight attendant, survivor, and a woman who had finally learned that dignity is not given back by the people who took it. Sometimes, you have to reclaim it page by page.